If you want to start or scale your property development business to 8 figures and beyond, then you're in the right place. This is the Property XPerts Podcast with Ben Richards and Jack Diggins, two serial entrepreneurs bringing weekly insights from our award-winning businesses. In these podcasts, you'll learn how we found, funded and delivered over £80 million worth of property in the last 6 years, with templates you can use, deal analysis and deep dive discussions that will help you build your businesses successfully. We hope you'll enjoy.
Hello, welcome everyone. I believe we're live. I bloody hope so. Got some potential technical difficulties, but bear with us. Yeah, we are. My screen's playing. Ben's lost, and probably his St Albans signal. But anyway, welcome. Happy Friday. We are here every Friday without fail. I think we've missed a couple of episodes in almost 3 years. So thank you for all our followers, and we're super excited to share what we're going to be going through today. And as always, the highs and lows of running property construction. I was at a business networking event earlier today, and we had to do a short introduction, and apologies to everyone there. Mine isn't short because we run everything from surveying. Ben runs his architectural practice. We run a £35 million in delivery development company. And we also run a management and lettings business in private and also a social housing portfolio as well. Hello, Ben.
Hello, I'm back. I think I'm back now.
So our goal, and hopefully you're joining our journey, whether you're new or you've been following our journey, is to deliver 1,000 homes in the UK, which is £1 billion worth of property. We're on the loading tracker of about 10 to 11% on that at the moment, which is super fun to share. And people often say that we're ambitious, which I think you can see from the goal that we've set ourselves. We always, and someone was actually saying at the event today, they watch our channel, we're extremely transparent with what we do and real with figures and what we get up to. And I think our value creation in any market is always creativity. Across our businesses, we work with private investors. We kind of at any given stage really have investments open. We've had people that have inquired about investment from off the back of this podcast, and we've even helped them with a bit of almost advisory on what we look for and help others seek in the market. But of course, we do have some open vacancies. We've got a permitted development scheme, which is right in our bag, scheme in fairly central London, just in South London. We also have some other investments open, including a social housing investment, which I believe tonight we're up for an award for ESG Developer of the Year and also ESG Investor of the Year, with some menial competition like the Berkeley Group and to name a few. So we'll keep you posted.
David and Goliath.
Yeah, in actual fact, it may come in during this call. So we will see how we get on. But yeah, if you are interested in learning more, it's no obligation. We never expect anything to come off the back of the call other than meeting good people. And if we can help people, great. If we can work with people, even better. So today's the 14th of November. And in the agenda today, we're going to be going through your guide to commercial conversions. Bit of a buzzword, hot topic for the last decade, but we've been doing it now for a decade. Commercial conversions have been rife and really popular, and I do think they will always cut good headway using certain planning laws that enable you to bypass the tedious planning applications. So we're going into that. I think pretty much we were asked actually, which is coming up on later, what percentage of our delivery is commercial conversion. Is pretty much all of it, really. We sprinkle some new build on some of those sites, but most of our sites are commercial conversions. We'll be talking about construction under £200,000. Obviously, XP Property talks a lot on this channel about bringing in main contractors. Who do you need to work alongside those main contractors from a professional perspective? But we don't actually delve too much into construction under 200k, which is what Central Suites do in and out, day in, day out. And we've had some pain points on one of our projects, and I'm just going to talk through what you can expect, like politics and handbags on site. There just is a different level of management But bringing in trades, when you should bring in trades, should you bring in trades, and how we operate for smaller conversions, whether it's a house to a HMO or just even a light refurbishment. So that's contractually, management, blah, blah, blah. We'll be doing a sneak peek into XPS's client portal, which is a really cool product that we've been working on in the background. And then we'll be going into Zen Properties Podcast. And I feel like I should swear when I'm talking about that, because Mac, the founder of Zen, loves a few swear words, which is always quite comical. So we'll be talking about what we talked about. We will then go on to talk about if you watched a few episodes ago, a housing association that neighbours our site was trying to hold us ransom and extort us for £1.2 million. We're going to let you know with how that arm wrestle is going. I'm going to be sharing a bit about blending costs of debt and cost of equity, because our new land guy that's joined does what the usual people do. And when you're looking at debt terms, you look at what's the cheapest cost of capital. But there's a lot of consideration that goes into that balance of leverage, cost of that leverage. Sometimes it doesn't cost more to leverage another 8% LTV. And if that is the case, what does that then recover as equity costs? So I'm going to be showing you some calculations and how you can work that out yourself. We're going to be talking about VAT and whether you do this quarterly or monthly. I don't think you can do it annually, can you? No. Why we might be flipping it to monthly. We're going to be talking about an incredible Aura completion of a house tour, which I'm sure will be as sexy as ever. And then I'm going to give you a debt 101, which sounds really negative, but I'm talking about development finance, bridging finance, what is rolled up interest, retained interest, simple interest, compounding interest, and extensions. And I'll have you know that I would hazard a guess that on some of our bigger sites, going with a product that is rolled up rather than retained might save us up to £50,000 just by going with a slightly different product. So that's that. Then into Q&A, and ask questions as we go through, because we will answer them, and we love live questions because it's what you people. Yeah.
I think those two finance pieces that you're going to be talking about will be massive for loads of people listening into this. So definitely stay tuned till the end and get your questions in, because it's a minefield for those that have never ventured into development or investment or fully understand how the finance and capital stack is put together, and the costs associated with that and the process that you go through. So yeah, I think Jack is going to be spilling all the beans on that today. And that's the sort of thing that we've been doing for the last 3 years. So we're on season 3, episode 46, which means we're coming up to our 3-year, fourth year milestone, I guess. So we've been doing this for a long, long time now on the podcast. Not everyone that tunes in is subscribed, and that hurts me. So I want you to take the time now. If you do tune in quite regularly, make sure you click that subscribe button, click like, and do please just share it with one person that you might think get value from it. And if one person is too easy for you, share it in a property WhatsApp group where you've got like 200-300 people in there, and shout about how good this is. So yeah, we want to share it as wide as we possibly can, because we know you get value from it because people tell us. On to point number 1. And if you tuned in 5 episodes ago, we did a deep dive on commercial conversions. And what I've realized, and Jack sort of touched on it earlier, is that we are very much specialists in this field. It is what we've done most of in the last 5 or 6 years. We utilize permitted development really, really well by going through the Class MA process to convert offices, retail, light industrial, doctor's surgery to residential, using that fast track 56-day process where you don't pay affordable housing contributions. You can reduce and fully relieve some of the SIL liabilities in certain situations. And we talk through all of that in season 3, episode 41. So if you haven't listened to that one, and commercial conversions is something you want to get into, then absolutely go back and watch that episode. What I'm currently in the process of doing, I am creating with Aura and my team there a downloadable PDF guide to commercial conversions. This not only will be around the whole design process and planning process and the loopholes and the sort of fast track processes that you can use for commercial conversions to convert them into residential. But it'll also factor in some of the more development stuff that we learn in XP Property, for example. Aura as an architectural practice, very, very proficient at the design and the planning phase of things and the delivery phase of things. But ultimately, there's a lot more that goes into the type of asset you want to be buying and all of the development things around that, like utilities connections and sales processes and development mix. And I'm going to be factoring some of that into the PDF as well. So if you want to get that PDF as it's released, drop commercial conversions down in the comments, and we'll make sure that you're one of the first people to get hold of that. It's something that I'm actively drafting at the moment. I've done a first round. I'm tweaking a few things, adding some nice imagery, adding some examples of how we've optimized our floor plans, for example. So Tame, for example, I think had a gross internal area to net internal area ratio of about 75% when we took on the property. And we've increased that to, I think, 87% GIA to NIA ratio. And that might not mean a lot to you, but if you go back and listen to episode 40, season 3, episode 41, you'll understand what that means and how much value that adds to our schemes. It's effectively adding an extra, extra 10% saleable area to each floor plate, which is massive when you've got pound per square foot sales values that are £500 per square foot plus, for example. So that's what I've got busy, what I'm busy doing on my to-do list at the moment. I should have that released probably the end of the month, and I'm being pushed to complete it because I'm also writing an article for the Blue Bricks magazine on this particular topic. So like Jack said, like I've said, we are very much specialist in PD. It's what we've done a huge amount of, and we've converted a lot of commercial assets into residential. So if we, we've probably done everything that's needed to be done in terms of commercial conversion. I mean, one of our first projects was a mixed use site where we converted commercial, we extended commercial, we converted residential, we extended residential. It had everything, and that was project number 1 for us 7 years ago. So in between then and now, we've done a huge amount. So yeah, definitely tap us up for guidance on that, and tune in to the episode 5 weeks ago. Cool. Working with different contractors. You're on mute, Jack.
Yeah, nice. Ben, you can probably chime in on on this somewhat, because
pros and cons.
Basically, we've got a flip that we're doing at the moment, which is a grade 2 listed cottage. Essentially there's been just some areas where I'm having to roll up my sleeves and get more involved because stuff isn't getting done. It's not really at the price point that we did agree, and it's just to try and almost share how we're overcoming those problems, because it's kind of common knowledge that if you're doing a sub 200k construction, refurb, extension, conversion to HMO, it's very rare that you'll actually bring that into a fixed price JCT contract. It's a lot more fluid, it's a lot more relaxed, and that has its cons. It has its pros, that you're obviously you can be more nimble on site, you can agree other things quite easily because it's not contractually there. Like, for an example, actually I changed my mind, let's do that there, as long as the materials aren't ordered. And I thought it would be good to sort of have a light touch on how we manage those contracts. So, and coincidentally, I think a lot more is based on relationship because that contractual position isn't in place. So some contractors that we've worked with a lot, we can be a lot more relaxed around it because subjectively, if they do then cock up that job, they're kind of hindering the future work that we could be doing with them. But we don't typically have a JCT contract or really a contract at all. We do as best detail of scope of works as we possibly can. We send it over to the contractor. I typically would prefer to say to the contractor, and I typically, if we're instructing a new contractor, to say this at the beginning, I say, ideally, I want to just come back and you give me the front door key and that's that. Obviously, there's loads of engagement, and that's typically picking items or changing potential designs with things that you might uncover on site. But I don't want to be dragged into the day-to-day, and that does quite frequently happen with the smaller contractors because they're not really taking on the job fully as if a main contractor would. They tend to have more questions, and when those questions come hourly, it's quite frustrating. But you sometimes think to yourself, well, if I didn't pick up the phone and answer that, what would have been the actual result? which is a question to potentially ask yourself. But this renovation at the moment is about 100K. It's an old cottage, some structural works, all scope of works pulled together, all planning that was approved to get those scope of works pulled together were referenced in the quote. That quote was then sent over, and obviously there has been additional and changes to that. But by most part, the price was agreed. Now, the reason I'm sort of bringing this in is because essentially the decorating quote for this particular job came in significantly higher than the original quote. And you can kind of argue there is more work, but equally, I thought it was extortionate. So the decorating quote to decorate 2 external walls, which are quite large, but completely redecorate the internals of this 3-bedroom cottage, was £18,000. Now, the way that I worked that out in my head, which is a lot more straightforward to work out in decorating, but also than a big construction project, is I just think to myself, well, if you paid someone £250 a day and you had 4 people on it per day, that's 4 times 250, which is £1,000 per day. They've got to be painting for 18 days before you get to that price. Obviously, there's a material cost, but paint isn't that expensive. So from that ratio, I think to myself, that house and externals could be painted in a week, easily by 4 people. So I think that's overpriced. And in that particular scenario, I sort of was candid with the main builder, and I said, look, I think that's ridiculous. He was subbing it out to a decorator, and we agreed that I'd pull that from the agreement and I would source that myself. Ideally, I would much rather it if that builder, and this is typically what I would propose you do, you go back to the builder and say, that's extortionate, go get 3 more prices, because then you're leaving it under the remit of their job and you're not then doing the work yourself. But unfortunately, with this job, I've had to take on quite a lot of things, because if I did do that, it would just delay the project further and further. So coincidentally, I've sourced the painting and decorating and the paint, and we'll probably bring it in for around 10K. And now that is a huge saving for very little work. That probably cost me half a day's worth of work, all inclusive. And to be saving £8,000 is a significant amount. Yes, the builder might be a little bit, nose out of joint because there's new people on site they may not have worked with before, and that's the politics that comes with it. But as an example, sometimes you do have to then delve in and be a bit more granular. I'd also recommend, on top of agreeing pricing for everything, agreeing obviously like the VAT that's being charged, what materials and items are going through the contractor. This particular project is 5% VAT. So ideally, I want the contractor to be buying everything, including kitchen, tiles, whatever it may be. So get that pre-agreed. I would also recommend agreeing timeframes. Now, this has been really difficult with this project because we agreed a Gantt chart, timeframes, even a cash flow against their cost pricing. It's completely overrun, and that's why we've had to step in and push the project along and get the last things, changed off. And I think one of the reasons it's been delayed is because it's not a massive job. They're not there every day, so they can't then control other trades to do what they need to be doing. It's a week before, the plumber's known that he could go back and do X, Y, and Z. So what I would highly recommend is agree face-to-face with your builder that you're happy for them to take a margin on the other trades, but get the other trades contact details, because I've been liaising with the plumber, the electrician, the tiler, the flooring, the decorator, the main builder, and it's sped up that process. So you're not relying on them to always be in tune with each other and also share their numbers with each other. Where a builder might be reluctant to do this is they might think that you're going to pull the wool over the eyes, do a few extras, do something on the side, but just be candid that you understand that they're under their management. You just want to be able to communicate with them as and when. And that's really useful if you get on site and you see something that might obstruct another tradie pushing on a few days. You can just call them and say, look, where's the sink going? When are you fitting it? What do you need from me? Do you need the flooring down? And you can cover a lot more ground rather than me contacting the builder and saying, can you speak to the plumber and ask them these 3 questions? Can you speak to the electrician and ask these questions? Try and make everyone communicate as best you can and share those contact details. Another example of actually bringing in our own product or service is we're just finishing a 5-bed HMO at the moment. Howden's fitted a kitchen. They quoted a quartz worktop, which was $4,000 just for the worktop. I said, can you do that half the price? Otherwise, we're not going to go with you. And they said, no, we can't move anything. I got a new provider in, Builder was happy because realistically, he knows that we're all in this together and I want to get the project pushed on. I'm happy for him to technically still take a markup if he needs to liaise on site, or he needs to give him a lift up with the quartz coming up. So take care of the main builder, subject to them still being on side. And then we ended up getting a new quartz provider in for 1,800 quid, including a backsplash as well. So there's sometimes it does help to get involved, and that, 2 hours work, but pushed on to the builder. So they did the site visits, they helped do the measure up, templating, they took the delivery. I wasn't doing any of that. I just found someone, got them to site, got them to quote, and then we pulled the trigger. That was $2,000 for probably a couple of hours work. So that's where your value can be valued. And if your builder loses interest on that value saving, it can be extremely costly for you. Because unlike a JCT contract, they're working double hard to make sure that project comes in at the right price, because they quoted 16 months ago to deliver it at that rate. When it's a little bit more one-man band and his, boys around him, they become very less motivated to actually hunt around and get you the best price. So sometimes you've got to roll up your sleeves and do that yourself. So timeframes, budget, whose responsibilities, communication across the board. Don't be afraid to ruffle a few feathers and go in and be like, I need that done. Why is that expensive? Push back on things. But I will say that I think the politics, honestly, on site, like the new decorator's upset the electrician and he's upset the carpenter, and then the carpenter told the new decorator what the old decorator had quoted, and then had a go at his quality of work. And it's just like this forever. Honestly, it's like having like a classroom of 8-year-olds.
This is why we don't set up a construction arm, right? This
honestly,
is the hassle that,
like the handbags in it. Like honestly, like there's rumors spreading. Like the painter decorator who I've known for 25 years is telling me like rumors on site, and I called some of them out on it, and they just fold. They say, I never said that, and I was like, well, you did. Why is this coming back to me? Absolute handbags. But anyway, hopefully that was useful for people doing slightly smaller projects than the big XP stuff. And then all I would say is, be real, be present. A lot of builders just want to be heard and communicated with, and definitely pick up the phone. Like a lot of these guys can't even pull together their own invoices. I would have said 80% of the trades that I have on site, they don't send the invoices, it's their wives. So sometimes tech or text messages or detailed technical drawings just get ignored, and their attitude is, I won't do it. So give them a phone call, chat them through it, be their little sounding board and their little counselor if you need to. If they've got a rant about someone else, go, yep, cool, no worries. But yeah, anyway, and have a bit of fun as well. That's what I love about tradies. Like I said to the electrician was kicking off on site the other day because he said, I can't crack on, there's no lights on site. And I had actually had all the lights on site delivered. And I said that they've been there so long, they're probably out of warranty. As a bit of a candid joke, to like drive things on, which is quite fun.
Nice. I mean, you get different problems at the other end of the scale, with the bigger contractors. Last night I went to bed having sent a really shitty email to one of our contractors where we'd waited literally, and I kid you not, waited a year to get a quote for 30-meter lengths of strip foundations. And it came in at like 15 grand. And when I calculated what it should have been based on their own rates within their original contract, it was £2,000. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is just not, how we want to push things forward on this project. And it's not the first time where they've come in at a price where it's just ridiculous. And I've queried it and questioned it and put some logic behind the pricing. And then they've said, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll move forward on your pricing. I'm like, well, why waste time going back and forth, waste your management, waste my management, and get no further forward. So yeah, there's, the construction industry is rife with problems. There's so many variables involved, so many people involved, that there's always going to be issues, no matter how big or small the contract value. Yeah, part of being a developer. Cool. On to point number 3. And you'd have, if you'd tuned in over the summer, you'd have seen me or heard me being very excited about a AI platform called Replit. I was on holiday with the family. I had a 6-month-old baby in one hand and my phone in the other, basically creating a whole client portal for XP surveys. This piece of kit called Replit is ridiculous. By the time I'd left the left the holiday, I'd almost sort of had an MVP, a minimum viable product of a portal that was operational, but really not kind of quite fit for purpose. But it gave the team an idea of where I wanted to head with this particular type of technology. Roll on sort of 3 or 4 months now, we've had a full stack developer, software developer, working with us to tweak, upgrade, and get the portal into a place where we are happy with it. I wanted to give people a sort of insight into the power of what this can do and what we've been able to build, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous what we've been able to provide. You pay a lot of money to create software like this. We've done it for probably 25% of the cost. Has allowed us to create a fully bespoke portal that, number one, creates a project management tool for us. So this is us. This is me logging into my dashboard. I can see very quickly all of this information is pulled in through HubSpot, our CRM. It connects to Xero, our accounting software. It connects to Google Drive. It connects to our online quoting tool. It connects to absolutely everything, and everything is then forced into this portal, and this portal pulls everything together. So I can see month by month how we're doing in terms of quoted jobs, how many jobs we've secured, what the average deal ratio is, what the closing ratio is, how well are we converting existing clients, how well are we converting new clients. This has all been built bespoke for us internally to act as our KPI tracker, our management tool internally, and ways in which we can get everyone in the team an understanding of how, what the bigger picture is with the business, with the business. I've got graphs here, I've got pie charts, I've got basically everything that I might want as a business owner, as a very, very high level dashboard that I can go into very quickly, get a heartbeat of the business. How are we performing at the very moment? What quotes are going out? What projects are we winning? What projects are we losing, etc. Not only that, we've built effectively, we used to use Asana, which is a project management tool. Obviously you pay, I don't know what we pay, 30 quid per user for Asana every month. And it has its limitations. You can only set it up in a way in which Asana has the capabilities of it being set up as, whereas we've been able to effectively kind of replicate our Asana board. So this is not too dissimilar to what we're used to using in Asana, but it's built in a way whereby it's fully bespoke to how we operate. It has automation. So as soon as I move, so from left to right, this is basically Kanban style for those that are listening in. We've got, fee proposals sent out when we're instructed, when we've been on site, done the survey, who's drawing it, when does it get QC checked, it's completed, drawings are sent, and that whole kind of workflow moves through the process of our business. And at each stage, as soon as it's moved into the next section, it has automations behind that, whereby if it's moved from drawing in-house to completed, it knows that a invoice will be automatically set up in Xero to be checked and sent out to the client. And all of that automation has been done via the sort of AI Replit platform that's been pulled together. I've got a project here. If I go to one of Aura's projects, for example, we've got all of this has been set up by us. So we've got the main stages as a milestone checker. So I can see what stage this project is at a very quick snapshot. I've got all of the relevant contact details for the project, the description of what the client wanted, any comments back and forth within the team I can type into here. So everything for this project is available to us, and it's all bespoke and all been created by our own portal, our own platform. We've connected up our Google calendars, so everyone within the business can see when we've got surveys coming up, who's on leave, who's doing the survey. If I click into one of these surveys, I can see the main details around this project, what the value of the survey was, what the client contact details are. So if one of my surveyors is on site, they've got all of the details to hand in terms of who they should be reaching out to and contacting if there's nobody in. And this, or the team also have this available on their phones. So everything that they need is all in one place. They know that they can log into this portal on their mobile phone, get all of the relevant information they might need at the touch of a few buttons. I mentioned it's all linked to Google Drive, so we can upload client documents, as per the project. We can create new quotes on this portal. We can view all of our clients. This is a CRM platform that we have fully custom built within the Replit program. I can manage team, etc. Now, this is I've sort of given you a whistle stop tour of the front, the back end. So this is our admin portal. This is where us as a team log in and can see all of the activity within the business, and all of the team have access to move things around, add comments, flag things, flag issues. And that's our internal project management tool. But if I go over to the client portal, what we've now, let's go as Central Suites. So this is the client portal. So what we've built, and this is still in somewhat of a beta stage, but it should be pretty good for you to look at. So the previous portal that I showed you, or previous login, is for us internally. The second part of this portal is a client portal. So if I'm an architect, I use XP Surveys regularly, I can log into my client portal with XP Surveys, and I can see all of the projects that I have ongoing. So I can see all of these projects are lined up here. These are all the projects associated with my company. I can see what invoices are owed. I can see each individual project in terms of where things are at on the progress. So milestones of completion. I can see that, it's been booked in. The survey is scheduled for whatever date. And as the works progress internally, I can see where those sit. So I've got a very quick snapshot without having to ring up XP Surveys. Again, from an XP Surveys perspective, I don't have to have admin team at hand answering loads of really mundane questions around where are we at in the process, because the client can log in and view everything related to their project in this one thing. It's linked to Xero, so all of the relevant payments associated with my project can be viewed. It will give me a payment processing timeline again. So, issued, in draft, scheduled, paid in full, part paid, that type of stuff. And then I can go in and I can view my documents. So this all links to our Google Drive folder. So once the project is completed and there are files within this project, the client is notified, they can log into their portal and they can download the output drawing. So I can see very clearly here, I've got a Revit model that has been created by by XP Surveys. This is actually one of XP Property's projects. So I've got an opportunity here to log in and view download the drawings, download the documentation. And what we are actually looking at now, this might work, I'm assuming it is. Yeah, very good. So we've now got the capabilities of embedding 3D viewers. So this is a Revit model, which means that we've built the model in 3D because the architect that we're working with on this project, which is Aura Architecture and Interiors, work in 3D. So I can view via my client portal a 3D view of the Revit model as a layman. So anyone within the team can log in, they can zoom around the Revit model that we've created. They don't have to have any specialist software to do so. They can see the quality of the output. They can see all around the property itself, including taking measurements, etc. All from this portal, basically. And it does seem to be taking a while. It's quite a big file, so it might actually take a while to load. But yeah, so this is phase 2, and we are now launching this to our clients. So Jack at Central Suites is a client, myself at Aura is a client. We will start running this out over the next couple of weeks to give clients a login to test, to break, to tweak, to basically start using as a
Oh, I think we might have lost Ben. Replit has crashed his PC.
Yeah.
I suppose while Ben's off, I might have to step in and share my screen.
Our business, but also and won't want to go to any other surveyor once they start using it. So that's the first two parts of our portal. The third portal, which we should be developing by sort of Q2 next year, is actually a freelancer network, so a freelancer marketplace, where we're going to be connecting with other external surveyors, getting them on our on our database. And then when we win work, we have the option to then either finish the work internally or offer the job out to our external network to provide the survey for us on our behalf. Yeah, I think, Jack, my signal's probably struggling because it's trying to load this this Revit model.
Cracking site, that one.
Yes. So yeah, this is it. This is me. This should give me the opportunity to go in and zoom around this Revit model. I think my computer's also fucking useless. I mean, we'll move on. If I can get it working, then I mean, it's sort of working now, actually, isn't it? There we go. Yeah, it's in and out. Anyway, you get the gist. For not a huge amount of money, you can now build bespoke software to operate your business in the way that you want to operate it. And ultimately, with Replit, you don't have to have any coding experience. I built that
Ben, you've gone again. Fortunately for platform users,
X, Y, and Z. Here's all of the dependencies. Here's my website. Fuck.
I think it's Ben's PC and Ben's Wi-Fi. So the platform is actually amazing, flawless.
Yeah, sorry. Let's just move on.
Shall I get up the slides?
Yeah, I'm getting it back, but it's taking forever. What's the next slide?
It is
the
Zen stays. Yeah, Zen Property Podcast. Yeah, I can talk this through. So Ben and I are fortunate enough to meet Ben and his lovely wife this week on a podcast. We've actually known Mac for probably a few years now. He's hilarious. I mean, he did a property walkthrough tour on LinkedIn where he's just absolutely telling the truth. And that's what I love about Mac and his just straight to it. But anyway, he's done some commercial conversions. He runs a successful Airbnb company. His background was actually in Wi-Fi, and they've now set up their own podcast. And I think he's very techie, so very well put together. We had an absolute array of questions, didn't we, Ben, that we rattled through on the podcast?
Bombarded.
Yeah, which was really good. It was nice to be, going through quite a lot of stuff. Let me just actually pull up some of the questions to hopefully entice you to go listen to it. So we talked through an introduction to XP Property, mine and Ben's background, even from childhood up. What is permitted development? Why is it popular? We then talked about the future of PD, the limitations of PD, the conversion process. We then talked about acquisitions, finance, development, marketing, exits, operations, other exit strategies, and then anything else. We had a lot of fun on the way. They're quite a good duo, I think, because Mac's just to the point, and I think he's softened a little bit by the other half, the better half. But yeah, thanks for having us on, Mac, and head over there and subscribe to their channel and give them a listen.
It's going to be launched on Christmas Day, so there's a little Christmas present for everyone. Yeah,
I'll be in the air. Cool. On to the next one. We actually had a question in from Nick, which I think was about something I was talking about. Why can't I show that?
I think it was regarding my comment around the contractor wanting to charge 15 grand for something that's 2 days work.
What was the response?
I haven't had one yet. I rang this morning, had a text to say I can't speak right now, and I haven't had a chance to ring back. But
TBC, yeah. Nick.
TBC. Tune in next week. Cool. So yeah, I mean, onto another problem child. Last week, I explained that we'd had a local neighbour that tried to get £1.2 million or charge us £1.2 million to bring a cable through their land. I've learned a little bit more since then. Actually, there is a case law and a sort of well-known test case actually for ransom strips. I can't remember what it's called now, Stowe and Cambridge or something like that. And it's used regularly now to calculate the value uplift for ransom strips. And ransom strips can be anything. It could be ransom for the access, in terms of if I've got a big land development and somebody owns the only point in which you can access into that piece of land, to complete that development, you need access to that particular piece of land. So the owner of that land has, basically you under ransom, and the amount of value add that is generated by the by that ransom strip being unlocked, the owner is actually the value of that ransom strip could be anywhere between 25 and 50% of that value uplift. Now that might seem ridiculous, and it is, but that is genuinely how these things are calculated. I mean, based on that, they think we're making £2.5 to £4.5 million on a project where the GDV is £7.2 million. So that's, I mean, I've asked them how they've got to that calculation, but I haven't had a response back. But ultimately, it's sort of a moot point nowadays, because we think we found another solution. So the frustrating thing is that the solution that I think we're going to end up with is the very first solution that we found or had on site. And that solution is bringing in everything, all of the new electrical services, into the point in which it currently is coming into the site. Now, we were told very early on by a utilities consultant and by SSEN that we had to bring it in through, we had to bring the electricity for the rear of the site through another route. And in reality, from speaking to a couple of electrical MEP specialists that I know, speaking to the utilities contractor and designer that we've since brought onto this project, we're fairly confident that we can just bring in all of the supply to the front of the site and then duct and deliver all of the electrical supplies via armored cable and ducting through to the rear secondary core, which should have been the easy option from day one. And we've sort of wasted a year really going around the houses if this is how it does end up. But very frustrating. And I think I'm if you sit in on technical design meetings with me, like, I am always the one that pushes and questions, why are we doing this? And I do recall at the time when we were discussing it with SSEN and our utility provider, that was the only option, after trying various different routes. But yeah, even more frustrating for me knowing that that we probably will end up with a case where it's basically where we started in this whole process of trying to design that incoming utility supply. But that's where we're at. We shouldn't have to go through the neighboring property. We're just finalizing some details, and we still need to get SSEN approval on the new design. But from the people that I speak to, there is no reason why that can't happen. So that's the update. Tune into last week's episode to find out a little bit more about how it went down. But there's an update for you.
I could have had a bit of cash in the back pocket, but got greedy, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. So this one is quite, if you're not a numbers person, I'll try and explain this as best I can. And actually, I think I've closed the tab which had this open, which will help me talk about it. So basically, let's assume you are buying a building with debt and with mezzanine finance. Now, if you move the leverage of the debt and the amount of mezzanine finance required, because their cost of capital is different, you might be paying 10% for the debt and then 20% for the mezzanine. That when you move that, the total cost of finance changes, right? So the reason I wanted to share this is because some lenders, and I've actually found this quite common, is actually leveraging up to like 70, 75% LTV, or equally like 80% loan to cost, is the same cost of finance per pound as leveraging up to like 60% loan to cost. Now that's all well and good because leverage has benefits. Lack of leverage has benefits. It's slightly more secure. There's more headroom, less risk. If things move the wrong directions, there's a big buffer there. I get that. But if that buffer is the mezzanine finance and you still need more mezzanine finance, or there's a cost of capital for that mezzanine finance, it's worth doing the exercise. If you're going to be borrowing, let's just assume you need to borrow £1 million, and half of that's debt and half of that's equity. Obviously, if you borrowed a little bit more, you're still borrowing £1 million, but your typical risk actually goes down because your cost of capital goes down if you can get cheaper debt at 75% loan to that £1 million. Let's say 750, now 250. So what I've tried to explain there probably quite badly, and actually give you an example. So this is actual finance terms that we were sent on our project in Tame. And I'll walk you through it so that you don't need to squint and try and work it out, because it hopefully does make sense. But so essentially, if you can look at the far left column and the far right column, I believe it is, you can see that the far left column, the actual cost of capital is 12%, right? So that means from the debt lender, the total capital that you're borrowing is coming in at 12%. That's basically 1 in, 1 out, and 10% per year. Now, that is typically what brokers and what a lot of borrowers get fixated by. They get, what is my cost of capital? And they just look at that figure and then they make a decision. We don't necessarily just stop there. We obviously take that into consideration because it tells you what it's going to cost you for that finance. But we then compare it with another lender who might have higher leverage, means there's less mezzanine or equity going in, which either improves the cash on equity return if it's your own money or if it's your investors' money, or if it's mezzanine finance and triggers an interest cost, may make the overall finance package blended cheaper. And this is the example why. So the far left is essentially borrowing the same amount of money as slightly less money than the far right. So there's more leverage on the far right. It's actually realistically about 600-700 grand on the far hand right, which means we need 600 to 700 grand's worth less of mezzanine finance to do that deal. But the cost of finance on the far right is 12.9%. So if you saw this on a term sheet, you do get more leverage, but it's almost 1% more per year. Now, if you then, on this particular scheme with a mezzanine lender, if you consider the cost of deducting the saving you're making on the mezzanine finance, it's dramatically dropping that down because you've got almost 600k to pay back the mezzanine lender to increase your debt size. Remember that the overall debt with mezzanine is still the same, and the actual total cost of finance is £10,000 cheaper over the duration given the same scenario. So this is just to hopefully, and if you want this template, we can send it to hopefully help you analyze the sort of total stack of capital that's needed and working out the blended finance costs, because it will be different between lenders. A step further, and we talked about this in episodes before, also you've got professional fees around all of this. So that's lenders, lawyers, valuation, monitoring surveying visits, initial monitoring surveyor report, potential extensions. You've got all of these things that come into it, which also might make the cheapest cost of finance the most expensive. And I've found the cheaper cost of finance work better with larger deals, and I find that more expensive cost of finance with better professional costs surrounding that sort of boutique lender style typically fund smaller deals cheaper and more cost effectively. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely does. Good stuff. So we've had a couple of conversations over the last few months due to delayed VAT reclaims, which we were owed about 200 grand in VAT across just only 2 of our sites. We got paid last month after months and months of chasing on that. So good news, but it shouldn't have taken that long. But it's sort of, it made us realize that actually on construction sites, on development sites, for example, having quarterly VAT processes means that you're basically paying out and waiting 3 months for a VAT rebate on a lot of our schemes where that is relevant. It's not going to be relevant on all of your schemes, but where it is relevant, you're waiting 3 months. So even on some of our service-based businesses, so XP Surveys, for example, we're also looking at moving to a monthly VAT process so that we're seeing rebates come back faster. We're able to sort of keep a bigger grip on cash flow in terms of monthly VAT payments with XP surveys, for example, and just not be surprised where you sort of forget about it for 3 months. You get your VAT bill through and you're like, oh fuck, there's 15-20 grand that I need to pay, and I completely forgot about that. So yeah, moving to a monthly VAT process, your accountants and bookkeepers might hate it because it's probably a bit more work for them to do more regularly. But I think actually, given the way that the whole tax process is going digital, or has gone digital, it shouldn't be too difficult to just keep running that on a monthly basis and just keep on top of it more, keep on top of it better. I think that was the crux of it, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, we have capital on tap accounts with most of our businesses because it's so good having that cash flow management as and when you need it. It doesn't actually work out that costly to dip into it or whatever it may be. But I mean, this is technically just a little bit more paperwork, and you've got that capital at hand, technically at no additional cost, rather than you, especially if you're obviously typically getting tax reclaims. I'm going to talk about something on VAT next episode. I think it'll be a good one. I want to make a note of that.
Nice. I mean, we do have very, very good financial management controls because of using zero counting. The VAT is always one that just, no matter how I've been doing this for 8 years, I mean, maybe it's a subconscious thing to try and push it away and be like, I just don't want to pay it, so I'll forget about it. And then when it comes around every quarter, you're like, yeah, okay, fair. Gonna have to pay that soon. But if you want to use zero accounting software and you're not using it at the moment, we would highly recommend you doing so. It is the best accounting software out there that we've used. You can get 50% off for 3 months using the referral link down below. Yeah, make sure you create. I mean, if you want some further tips, there are previous videos and topics where we've covered how to set up your zero coding for your developments, how to break everything down so that it's easy to track budget versus actuals. We've talked a lot around financial management in terms of monthly management accounts, having access to your accurate balance sheets, and also looking at that cash flow forecasting as well. So yeah, go back and visit some previous episodes around good accounting practices. Onto some sexier stuff rather than finance. I visited this property yesterday. It is absolutely incredible. I mean, it looks cool from the outside, but inside it's just, if I could live in a house, it would look like this. It's 5-bedroom, 5-bath, massive open plan kitchen, dining, living space. Got all of the gadgets and gizmos that you'd expect to have in a sort of top spec house, to the point where it's got electric, you can't even see them. They're tucked away nice and sleekly above this massive bifold door, or sliding door. They're tucked away. It's electric blinds, so on your phone you've got an app to lower your blinds and control your heating, control your CCTV, look at your video intercom. Every bell and whistle that you can think of, this property has. And the contractor's done an absolutely incredible job on this. It's a company called Ardor Projects, ARDOR. Really, really good attention to detail. They're never going to be the cheapest, but because of that, you get incredible management from Bo. She's one of the directors and owners of the business. But yeah, the attention to detail is incredible. The project itself is phenomenal. So if you're not already subscribed to the Aura Architecture YouTube channel, if you're not one of the 4,340 people that are already subscribed, head over there now, subscribe, and over the next sort of month, we will be sharing the full video walkthrough of this incredible project. Yeah, it's really cool. Really, really cool. It's got another one similar to what we've done in our Colney Hatch Muswell Hill project. We've got a hidden utility stroke pantry behind one of the kitchen doors. Looks super cool. So yeah, unfortunately, if you're just listening to the audio of this, you're not going to be able to see the sort of snapshot and the teaser of this property. But lots of zinc cladding, lots of undulating geometric roofs, lots of glazing, lots of amazing internal finishes. So watch this space. Cool. And we have on Wednesday, the 19th of November next week, between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m, have our build and bond event, which we've now hosted probably 6 or 7 of these events, one every quarter. It's a networking event for built environment specialists, for architects, interior designers, developers, contractors. We have 2 fantastic speakers. Other surveyors, 2 fantastic speakers. We're going to be hearing from a fire suppression company all about the latest fire regs and how fire suppression systems can help you comply with those new regulations, which are becoming more and more prevalent in HMOs, developments, and even private residential homes. And then we've got somebody coming in to talk about retrofit, which again, with sort of the future home standards and a lot more high regulations in terms of thermal requirements and renewable technology and things like that. Retrofitting properties is obviously a massive deal that everyone's going to be dealing with. So 2 great speakers, great opportunity to network with other people in the area and further beyond. And there's free nibbles and drinks. So what's not to like? There'll be a link down below somewhere to register your interest on Eventbrite, or just type in XP surveys on Eventbrite, and I'm sure this will come up. It's free to attend, so get your tickets quickly. I think we have 25-30 signups at the moment. I think the room is maxed out at 40. So yeah, get in there early, and we don't want to be turning people away. So sign up as soon as you can, and we hope to see you there.
Thanks, Jordan, for watching.
Let's skip one there.
What was the commercial conversions? What do we have to send from that? Cool. Finance 101. I'm going to keep this fairly generalized, but I think it will be useful for everyone. I wanted to talk through basically the differences between interest, because if you're not in finance, or you're not a lender, and also potentially you're not working with the best broker, you don't always have the knowledge of what is good and bad. And actually, the volume of what we do, you quite quickly can take a look at a deal and be like, that's a learning. We might not work with that lender again. And that actually came to light in the last week. We asked for a redemption statement, and I realized that particular lender, and I just took it as granted, charges compounding interest beyond the date of redemption. So we tried to agree an extension. It was like pulling teeth, couldn't get hold of anyone. Like, it was horrific. So I pulled together quite a quite a firm email saying, this isn't good enough. We tried to find a solution for this, and as a result, they've given us a term sheet that is kind of like all the bells and whistles with extensions, default fees and etc. We've had a very candid conversation with them, and their actual post loans team have been really good and come back to us. But the main concern that they had charged compounding interest. Now, we can kind of take a view and be like, that's super expensive. We've got relationship with other lenders that, 1, potentially more pragmatic to organize extensions, but 2, don't typically charge that interest. Bit of a faux pas on our side, but I wanted to go through the differences between rolled up interest, retained interest, serviced interest, simple interest, compounding interest, because all of these things understood could save you a huge amount of money. And we're in a market where you speak to any debt lender, a lot of books are getting extended, which is not great for them, but they obviously need to exit the site, so it's not great for us either. Our cost of capital has gone higher on that particular project, but we all want the same result: get them paid back. So rolled up interest is, and I'll give a scenario about this. So I'm going to split out rolled up and retained, and why I prefer rolled up, and so on and so forth. So if you're borrowing £1 million, rolled up interest is you pay it at the end when you pay it back. So if you're paying 10% on a year, for an example, you'll borrow £1 million and you will get £1 million, and you'll pay them back typically £1.1 million. You do typically need a bit of headroom in the loan to value to do that. But that's a really broad example. Obviously, if you're borrowing 100 grand, you use the same ratios, so on and so forth. Now, retained interest is the interest deducted from day one, which I hate, because the lender doesn't actually need £1 million to get paid interest on £1 million. They're getting interest on £1 million, but they're only giving you 900. So technically speaking, they're they can do 10% in deficit in loans to get the full amount on the loan book. And that is typically why I don't like it. So it's a bit like, I talked about the £1 million loan and 100 grand on the rolled up interest. It's a bit like you're actually borrowing 1.1, but they deduct 100 grand off anyway. So my massive preference is typically rolled up interest, not only with invested loans, but also with lenders. That's typically what we like focusing on and doing. Now onto a bit of a step further, which is serviced interest. So rolled up is obviously at the end of the loan, you pay the additional loan back and interest. The principal is the typical terminology for the loan, principal and interest. And then you also pay the investment back. The retained is already in their bank account. Technically, they've already taken it off the top before, and you owe them 900 grand at the tail end. Last but not least is typically serviced interest, which is where you pay monthly, which is a typical 2-year, 5-year mortgage. We have had facilities that are serviced and a development facility. So if we bought something that's income generating, sometimes they might want part rolled up, part serviced. This is to maintain their correct loan to value levels. Let's assume you go up to a year and you actually need more time. I would highly recommend you get in contact with them, show them the solution, which is the exit, which you should hopefully have your ducks in a row, refinance terms, building control almost signed off, whatever that may be, fully let, or keep communication up, and then request an extension. It's better to agree it with them, because typically the T's and C's in the contract is typically a lot more aggressive than typically what you would be able to agree with the person. And I would then at that point, if you do need the additional time, to agree an extension, or even to potentially waive needing an extension if it's a very, very, very short period. Now, simple interest and compounding interest is really important, because the reason that I had to write this long email to this lender is because the interest that they were charging on the loan was 2.5% because we were late in paying it back. I mean, one, by all means, that is just unholy for first charge lending, which is one why I kicked off. But two, they were compounding the principal loan and the interest that have been accumulated to date. So they've lent us some capital, we've drawn down to develop, and now every month they're reviewing, this month's going to cost you 2.5% on the new amount, but that's all the interest and all the principal, all the retained interest and the day one, which in real terms was 3.5% of the total gross loan that we took out at the beginning. So unearthly amount of interest. So realistically, on paper, it said 2.5%, but because it was compounding, it was 3.5% simple interest on the original gross loan. Simple interest is if you borrow £1 million and it costs you 10% a year, that's just simple interest. If you compound £1 million quid at 10% per year, compounded every month, you're getting the monthly interest, accrued interest on interest, which isn't ideal. You don't really want to be paying interest on interest, which was a conversation Ben and I had earlier. But sometimes, you get into those traps, and this is why I'm sharing it with you, to hopefully avoid that. But lean on your broker. If you need a good broker introduction, happy to do so. If you need me to potentially look at anything, let me know. But you want to make sure you've looked into the debt positions yourself. And also, don't be afraid to push back on extension fees. Like, if in the contract it says 5%, try and renege that before you get the deal signed, sealed, and delivered. You'll be amazed that the originators can often bend the rules, but the people in redemption are very different people. They're there to collect money, and the originators are there to get money out the door. So that the originators tend to be sales background people that are typically a lot easier to see if you can make the deal a bit more malleable to suit you. I've actually done some deals to get the leverage up and to keep the interest down, where I part roll up the interest and part retain it after month 10. That means it gives me enough time to buy, build, develop, let out, and then once I've got the rental income, I can then service that interest. So I have agreed things as creative as that. Hopefully that was useful. Bit intense really for a Friday afternoon. It was funny because I was pretty knackered before we started this, but I'm full of life now, talking about numbers.
Rejuvenated. Nice. We just have one question that came in, and it's a very quick one, so we'll just quickly do it, and then and shoot off. But do you use an aggregator app or website which gives you a snapshot of all your business bank accounts together? No, we don't, Alex, at the moment. It sounds quite good, to be fair. We mainly bank with Metro, which, most, obviously we log into the Metro account and most of our accounts are there. But we do have some with Lloyd's and like other places. So not something
we've technically got Tess. She does a bit of that.
A bit of aggregating.
Our employee,
yeah. It's not something we do. I don't know. I guess I've always been a little bit sus around because I'm assuming this is like a third party platform getting access to all of you. But I mean, to be fair, we do it in Xero and we do it in other places, but I don't know. Just not something we've looked at.
Xero is pretty robust. I suppose how we do combat that is every month, myself, Ben, and our sort of accounts lead, who is Tess, our employee, go through basically all, we go through capital moving, money's moving and invoices that are due and things like that, as a bit of almost like a payment run type call sort of thing. And in that, Tess goes through and updates all the bank accounts. So we kind of get a snapshot of that. And obviously if we then don't see the iceberg ahead, she'll kind of say, guys, we've got these payments coming up, but there's not enough in there. Ben, can you turn your sofa upside down because we need all that poker chip money?
We need the monies. Yeah, nice. All right, hopefully that's answered that. Sorry that we can't be more. Yeah, pretty succinct answer. No, we don't. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. As always, please subscribe down below if you're not already subscribed. Click that like button, add some comments, share it with people that you think might get some value from it. And until next week, have a good weekend. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.